The note said one night. It lied. It was 11:47 on a Tuesday in October, and the rain was coming down in that slow, heavy way that sounds like a second heartbeat inside the walls. I was already in my robe, already brushing my teeth, when the doorbell rang. Once, then nothing. No second ring, no footsteps on the porch boards. Just the rain, and underneath it, somewhere down the block, the low cough of a car engine turning over. I stepped out onto the porch in my slippers, cold soaked through them before I made it 3 steps. The street was empty except for a pair of red taillights floating away through the wet dark, and by the time I blinked, they were gone around the corner of Larkin. Then I looked down. There was a wicker basket on my porch table, the kind of basket you would carry a picnic in, or a loaf of bread, or something small and fragile you did not trust to boxes. A cream blanket folded neatly inside. The blanket was breathing. I do not remember lifting the edge of it. I remember the weight of what I found underneath a baby, small and pink and warm, her cheeks flushed with the kind of sleep only the very young can manage in the middle of strangers and storms. Not newborn. Maybe 4 months, maybe 5. She had a dusting of dark hair, and her mouth was making the small, satisfied movements of a dream. Tucked into the fold of the blanket, beside her hand, was a piece of paper, folded once. My name was written across the front, just my first name, in handwriting I had not seen in 5 years. Claire. I stood in the rain with my hair going flat against my skull, and I did not open the note right away. I knew what that handwriting looked like. I knew who wrote my name like that, the C leaning slightly left, as if apologizing for itself. I had a shoebox in my closet, full of birthday cards written in that hand. I had not opened it in 3.5 years. I carried the basket inside. I left the note on the kitchen counter like it might bite me. I set the basket on the dining room table, and I stood over the baby, dripping rainwater onto the hardwood floor, and I tried to think. Call the police, a voice in my head said. That is what people do. And another voice, softer. Not yet. I unfolded the note. Claire, it read. Please watch her tonight. Just one night. I'll come back before morning. I'm sorry. I know I have no right to ask. H. Hisvel. Hannah. My sister, who I had not spoken to since our mother's funeral. My sister who had stormed out of a cemetery in Kent County and gotten in a car and driven west and never, in the 5 years since, answered a single call. My sister, who I had convinced myself was fine without me. My sister, whose number I still had saved under H in my phone because I could not bring myself to type her full name and see it sit there unanswered. Hannah had left a baby on my porch. I sat down on the dining room chair. The rain hit the windows. The baby made a small sigh in her sleep and turned her face toward my wrist. I should have been angry. I was, somewhere, but it was a small anger and it was drowning in everything else. Because the thing about family is that it does not ask you to be ready. It just shows up in a wicker basket on a Tuesday at 11:47 in the rain. I did not sleep that night. I moved the basket to the couch. I sat beside her. I watched the rise and fall of her small chest under that cream blanket, and every few minutes I tried to understand what I was looking at. Around 4 in the morning, she opened her eyes. They were gray-green, the color of river stones after rain. They were my mother's eyes. I had not seen those eyes in 8 years. Not since the hospital. Not since my mother had told me, in a voice already going soft from the morphine, that I was going to have to hold on to Hannah for her. That Hannah was the fragile one, even though everyone thought it was me. That Hannah would run, and I had to be the door she could come back to. I had not been a door. I had been a wall. And now my mother's eyes were looking up at me from a basket on my couch, blinking once, slow, unafraid. Some loves don't need an invitation, I thought. They just come home. The baby made a small sound, neither cry nor laugh, and reached one tiny hand up toward my face. On her wrist was a silver charm bracelet I had not noticed before, thin and looped twice to keep it from falling off. I knew that bracelet. I knew it the way I knew my own hand, because I was wearing the other one. Morning came. Hannah did not. I watched the sunrise from the kitchen window with the baby asleep in the crook of my arm, and the two bracelets, hers and mine, made a small silver sound against each other every time I shifted her weight. The rain had stopped sometime before dawn, leaving the streets slick and glittering, and wrong in the way empty streets are always wrong when you are waiting for someone who is not coming. Every car that passed, I flinched. None of them were hers. I did not call the police. I should say, why? I should be able to tell you that it was because the note said one night and one night had not yet ended, or because I trusted Hannah, or because I was still in shock. But the truth was smaller and harder than that. The truth was that if I called the police, a stranger would come into my kitchen and take this baby out of my arms, and I was not ready for my arms to be empty again. 5 months, I thought, maybe 6, which meant Hannah had been pregnant at Christmas, and nobody had told me. By 10 o'clock, I had named every impossible thing I was about to have to do: diapers, formula, a car seat, a crib, a pediatrician, eventually, a social worker, probably, a lawyer, almost certainly, and under all of it, buzzing like a second heartbeat: where is my sister? I put on clean clothes. I wrapped the baby in the cream blanket. I carried her, wicker basket and all, to the drugstore on Miller Street and bought everything a terrified woman buys when she has no idea what she is doing. The cashier smiled at the basket and said, "Oh, how old?" And I said, "Not long." And that was all I could say without crying in the aisle. Back home, I fed her. Her name was written on the tag of the blanket, inside, in blue pen. Nora. Nora, our grandmother's name. The woman who had raised Hannah and me every summer at the lake house, who had made us cinnamon toast on rainy mornings and taught us how to skip stones, and who had told us once, sitting on the dock with her feet in the water, that sisters were the people who held each other's childhoods, and that was not a small thing to hold. Grandmother Nora had given us our bracelets when Hannah was 10 and I was 12. Silver chain, 4 charms, a bird, a key, a heart, a star. "Don't ever take them off," she had said. "Not for anyone. These are how you find each other." I had not taken mine off in 22 years. Neither had Hannah. I had seen hers the last time, at the funeral, glinting under the cuff of her black sweater as she walked away from me through the rain. And now that bracelet was on this baby's wrist. I sat down on the kitchen floor with Nora on my lap, and I pressed my thumb to the small silver star of her bracelet, and I understood, for the first time, that something was badly wrong. Because Hannah would not have taken that bracelet off. Not for a boyfriend, not for a job, not for anything. The only way that bracelet came off Hannah's wrist was if Hannah took it off on purpose. And if Hannah took it off on purpose, she was saying something I did not yet have the courage to hear. I tried her old number. It was disconnected. I tried the number I had for her best friend from college. No answer. I sat on my kitchen floor and I cried for a long time while Nora dozed against my chest, her small hand curled into the fabric of my shirt. I had always believed love was something you had to earn. Something you opened the door for, carefully, after checking who was there. And here I was, holding it on my kitchen floor, uninvited, and my hands were shaking too hard to let go. If you are still with me, stay a little longer, because this is the part I did not understand for 3 days, and it is the part that changed everything I thought I knew about my sister. On the 3rd morning, someone knocked on my door. I had been awake most of the night. Nora was fussing with a low cold, and I was walking the hallway with her against my shoulder, bouncing in the small rhythm you learn without knowing you are learning it, when the knock came. 3 quiet taps, not urgent, careful. A man was standing on my porch in a gray coat, rain dripping from the brim of his hat, holding a leather folder against his chest. He was in his 60s, and his face had the soft tiredness of someone who had done this a great many times and had never gotten used to it. "Miss Halverson?" he said. I nodded, because my mouth would not make words. "My name is Daniel Hollis. I'm an attorney out of Spokane. I represent," and here he paused, and his eyes flicked to the baby against my shoulder, and something in his face went softer. "I represent your sister's estate." "Estate," The word went through me like cold water down a bare spine. "Could I come in?" he asked. "I think you should sit down." I stepped back from the door. I did not know yet what he was going to tell me, but I knew, the way you know when a storm has moved from the horizon into your own yard, that the note on my kitchen counter had not meant what I thought it meant. That one night had not been about Hannah coming back in the morning. It had been about something else, entirely. He sat at my kitchen table, the way tired men sit slowly, carefully, as if the chair might accuse him of something. He set the leather folder between us. He did not open it right away. "Your sister came to see me 6 weeks ago," he said. Nora was asleep in the crook of my arm. I held her tighter. "She asked me to deliver a letter to you," he said, and then stopped and started again. After she was gone." The kitchen was very quiet. Somewhere outside, a crow made one rough sound and was silent. "How long?" I asked. 2 years, he said. "The doctors gave her 2 years when she was diagnosed. She had about 18 months. 2 years. 18 months. All the time I had spent being angry at a ghost who was not a ghost. All the birthdays I had not called. All the Christmases I had told myself she did not want to hear from me." He opened the folder. The letter inside was in Hannah's handwriting, pages of it. My eyes went blurry, almost at once. He slid a box of tissues toward me with the quiet, practiced kindness of a man who kept tissues in his car. "Claire," it began, "if you are reading this, then I have already done the one thing I swore I would never do. I have left you again. I am writing this on the good morning of a bad week. The medicine makes the words slow down, so I am using what I have while I have it. I have been watching you. I know, that is a strange thing to say, but I have. I drove past your house in May when the lilacs were out. I saw you planting something in the front bed. You looked so much like Mom it hurt me to see. I never blamed you for the cemetery. I blamed myself for years, and then I stopped blaming anyone at all. Cancer teaches you fast that blame is a door you can close. Her name is Nora, after Gran. She is yours now, if you will have her. Not because I have the right to ask. I do not. But because she is the only part of me that still gets to grow, and I could not bear to think of her going to anyone who did not love the same people I loved. I have one clear night left, the doctor says. After this round, I will not know my own name. So, I am using my clear night to drive to you. I will not knock. I do not have the right to knock. But I will leave her on your porch, and I will leave you this one night to decide not whether to keep her, but whether you can love her without me in the room, without my guilt, without my apology. Just her, and you, and the quiet. Whatever you decide, know this. You were always the door, Claire. I was always going to come back. I just ran out of road. I do not remember what I did after I read that letter. I remember the sound I made was not one I had ever made before. I remember Mr. Hollis stood up very quietly and said he would come back tomorrow and let himself out. I remember the kitchen floor. I remember Nora waking up because I was crying and reaching her small hand up and pressing her palm against my cheek like she was answering a question I had asked without knowing I was asking. One night. She had not meant one night of me watching the baby. She had meant the one clear night she had left. The only night her body still let her drive a car through the rain and fold a blanket and write my name. She had spent it on me. She had spent her last good night on a porch she could not stay on. I held Nora until the sun came up. I called Mr. Hollis in the morning. I told him to start the papers. Nora is 5 now. The bracelet is on her wrist still, looped twice. I have let it out 1 link a year. It will fit her properly by the time she is 7, and then I will give her my own to match, and she will have 2. A little girl with a lot of silver. She asked me last week who the woman in the photograph on the mantel was. I told her about her mother. I told her about the lake house and the dock and the cinnamon toast. I told her about Gran Nora, who gave us our bracelets so we could always find each other, even when we forgot how. She listened, the way 5-year-olds listen, which is with their whole face. Then she said, "So, Mommy found you on the porch?" And I said, "Yes, baby." She did. I do not believe in a lot of things anymore, but I believe in this. Some loves don't need an invitation. They just come home. Sometimes on a Tuesday. Sometimes in the rain. Sometimes in a basket with a note and a silver bracelet, and the quiet that comes after a door you did not know was open.